everyone, good morning. So, as you may or may not know, I am a vegan and I have been vegan for 7-8 years now, since I was like 21, and I have been with my partner for nearly 10 years this year. Scary thought. So I wanted to make this video for you because he is not vegan, dun, dun, dun. And I know that there has been like many challenges that we've come across in our relationship because of that, but we've always managed to work through it. And I know that this is a bit of it can be a strange topic, because I think some vegans are like, how can you live with someone like that? And then other vegans are kind of like, tell me how you cope, because there's lots of people that are also living this way. It makes it sound really bad, like you're living in this way. But I also think it's a weird thing, like vegans are scared to talk about it. Like, I know for me, this is something that I don't tend to bring up in vegan circles because I feel guilty, like I failed as a vegan if I can't even like convert the person closest to me. So I know that's how I feel. I don't know if anyone else feels like that. I just thought I'd share with you some tips that I have and things that I have found living with someone who is not a vegan and someone who I love obviously deeply, otherwise I wouldn't be with them, and how we have like got through this. And I should say as well that like my partner isn't vegan, but the food that I cook is all vegan. Obviously, as you know, I don't cook meat. A, because I don't want to, B, because I'd probably give him food poisoning. But my partner, just to kind of preface this, is what I would call a vegan ally. He eats all plant-based food with me, and he occasionally, if he goes out with friends or something, he might eat meat, but he eats all vegan food with me, and the only thing that we have in the house is milk and also eggs. So he'll eat eggs and stuff if we have like a big vegan breakfast, and he'll eat drink milk in his tea. But he has oat milk coffees and stuff like that. So basically it's dairy and eggs, but everything else he doesn't really eat in the house. It's only if he goes out for a meal or something he'll have meat. So he's very, very, very good. So I just wanted to kind of preface that. And obviously, just because I do all the cooking and stuff, I'm assuming that is the same for you if you're the vegan in the household, the vegan of the household. But obviously, if that's not the case, then that can obviously bring its own challenges, because if someone else is having to do all the cooking and you're constantly having to be like, oh, remember, like, please don't put cheese in it, then that is a whole other challenge for sure. That is really, really difficult. But for me, obviously we live together. I do all the cooking in the house. I do most of the shopping, the food shopping, and no, that's not fair. He does go out to the shops occasionally, but generally I do like all the meal planning and the cooking and stuff. So perhaps it's easier for me because I'm kind of like in control of the food. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of like get that in. Okay, so my very first tip is try not to be an angry vegan. And by that I mean, I have obviously been vegan for a while. What's behind me? Oh, it's the controller. And when I first went vegan, as you will see from my story link below, it was because of health reasons. So because I've been with my partner for nearly 10 years now, he actually knew me when I was a pescatarian still, when I still thought that eating dairy and fish was okay. So for the first kind of two and a bit years of our relationship, I wasn't vegan. And then I got really ill, and then I found veganism, and then the ethical connection like swiftly followed. So my first tip is really try not to be the angry vegan. I certainly was. And the reason this is a tip is because I think I pushed him away for a big chunk of our relationship at the beginning when it came to veganism, because it was something that made me so angry and I couldn't understand. I just wanted to shake him and be like, how can you not see that this is the right thing to do? You know, like it just I hated it. I literally kept away from the topic. It was a problem. How we got through that, actually looking back, I'm not sure, because it was a very contentious issue and it was something that I really couldn't wrap my head around. And I still have days like that. I'm not gonna lie to you. I still have days when I'm like, how can you eat this way? How can you eat not eat milk, but drink milk? And, you know, ultimately, I know that it isn't, my responsibility to change him, and I'll come into that in a second, but trying not to be that angry vegan is actually really helpful, because you can actually have more productive conversations and you can actually open your heart to each other and kind of say, listen, this is why it's a touchy subject for me. This is what I know, and kind of explain where I was coming from, rather than, I think my reaction was to just shut him out and not talk about it at all, because I didn't think that he understood. Now he has a much better understanding of it, and we eat vegan meals together and everything, and I'll come onto that a bit later on. But initially it was definitely a challenge. And in trying to be that angry vegan and trying to convert him basically into my way of thinking and thinking my way was the only way, I ended up pushing him away. You know, I took 3 steps forward and he took 3 steps back. Whereas now my approach is completely different, and the more that I step back and the more that I just give him his own space and time to think things over and kind of figure things out, the more that it is better, and it has completely changed our relationship. So trying not to be that kind of angry vegan and forcing it down people's throats, literally and figuratively, has definitely helped me. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2. So tip number 2 is just recognizing that everyone's relationship is different, and just because 2 vegans go out with each other doesn't mean they don't have any challenges. This is something that's definitely helped me, and everyone in their relationships, well, any relationship actually, but in terms of romantic relationships, there's always a challenge of some kind. There just is, because that's what relationships are for. They are challenging ground to help us learn and to help us grow. For me and him, this is our kind of challenge. This is our, you know, battleground, if you like. This is where we learn and grow together, and we've learned so much together through me being vegan and him not being vegan. And I'm not saying that makes it any easier, but just acknowledging that the grass isn't always greener is really helpful. There's certainly been times when I've been like, oh, it would be so much easier if I was going out with a vegan, but how could I possibly know that? Yeah, okay, we might have the shared values in that, but it doesn't mean we have shared values in everything. I've certainly met loads of vegans in my life, and I've thought, like, Christ, like, you're a... Well, you know, just because someone's a vegan doesn't mean that you'll automatically get on and hold hands and sing Kumbaya. There's other challenges that you can come up in your relationship and in your life. So just because that other person isn't vegan doesn't mean that you don't share other important values with them. Yes, he's still not a vegan, but that doesn't mean that we don't have common ground in plenty of other areas. That means that our relationship functions just fine, beautifully in fact. Otherwise, I still wouldn't be here. So remembering that just going out with a vegan isn't going to solve all your relationship problems. It doesn't mean that you'll never have an argument with the other person. And I'm sure if you have friends or family members or any other people in your life that are vegan and go out with other vegans, I'm sure they'll tell you the same thing. Or at least I hope they would. Okay, so the next thing that I would say has really helped me and helped my relationship is realizing that it's not your responsibility to change someone else. And this is really, really hard. And it kind of links to the you take 2 steps forward, they take 3 steps back thing. In the sense that, particularly when you're in that kind of angry vegan phase, which I think every vegan should go through, it's a rite of passage, there's nothing against that phase. But when you go through that phase, it feels like you are doing an injustice to the animals if you don't speak up. And that is not your responsibility, okay? You cannot carry that weight on your shoulders. And I think that's a whole separate video in terms of like vegan burnout and feeling like you constantly have to be advocating for animals. Trust me, I know, I've been there. I have seen what you have seen in order to be vegan in the first place, and I understand that you feel like every waking second should be spent advocating for animals, and I also have days like that now where I feel that too. But I know that ultimately, I'm out of breath, I'm talking really fast. I know that ultimately it doesn't work that way, and it feels like you're doing the right thing for animals when you're kind of going on about it all the time, but all you're doing is like pushing people away. Hang on, this is the same as my other tip. The other thing I think is, particularly for me, I'm really, really interested in the health sides of veganism, a whole food vegan diet, and I'm really passionate about trying to spread awareness about how this can really help, often, you know, in some cases reverse, and in some cases even prevent certain things, you know, linked to cancers, heart disease, all that kind of stuff. I feel really passionately and really strongly that if I have this information, that I should give it to other people. And I worry that my partner is going to develop something like that further down the line, and it's going to be my fault or something. Like, you know, I have had those thoughts, and I'm sure other people have had those thoughts as well, but it is not your responsibility to make choices for another human being, just like it's not your responsibility to decide what they do as a job, what they wear, what they, you know, whatever. Like, it's just not your responsibility. If you let go of trying to control that, then your life will be so much easier, because you'll realize that you can't possibly expect someone else to do something that you want them to do just because you want to do it. Even if it's right or wrong, you know, right and wrong is arbitrary when it comes to human behavior. Human behavior just kind of is. So giving yourself a bit of slack is really, really helpful, and just acknowledging I know this information, but it's not my responsibility to change you. You have to find it on your own. So that's my tip number 3. It's not your responsibility. Easier said than done though. Okay, my arm is aching, so I've put you down. So tip number 4 is make great food. I feel like after I went through my angry vegan phase and I came out the other side of it, one of the things that I used in my vegan advocacy toolbox is food. And this sounds really simple and it sounds really like not the case, but this was definitely true for me. I have managed to, convert loads of people to eating vegan food just by cooking great meals for them. And my partner is no different. I cook all of our meals and he eats all, vegan food, but I think using the power of food and showing someone that their food can be just the same, if not better, is really, really powerful. But also not putting too much pressure on yourself. Like, I know for me that if I make a meal for us both and he doesn't like it, I'm like, oh my God, maybe he's gonna go and eat like a sausage roll or something and I failed. But that isn't the case. Again, like, not your responsibility. So I think just trying to make great tasty vegan food and really showing how colourful and healthy and how good you feel. And I know that's certainly the case for him. He said to me that he feels so much better, he feels healthier, just cleaner. So yeah, I think the power of food is not to be underestimated. So if you have a particular favourite meal or something that is really amazing and really tasty, trialing those kind of things out is a really great way. And whilst for me, I don't like to eat a lot of kind of faux products like faux chicken, faux sausages, faux cheese, that kind of stuff, although I do love a veggie sausage, I think these kind of foods are perfect kind of like gentle conversion foods to help kind of get them over the line and try some vegan things without even realizing. I mean, there's these chicken nuggets that we had, obviously not made of chickens, that we had the other day, and they were so good. And that's kind of like the perfect conversion food stuff that I wouldn't normally eat, but that kind of thing just works really, really well with trying to convince people that vegan food is also great. So tip number 4 is do not underestimate the power of food, make great meals and show them how good veganism is. We're not missing out, they're missing out. Tip number 5, which is perhaps a bit of a strange tip, but recognizing that just because your partner isn't 100% vegan doesn't mean they're 100% not vegan, and that is certainly the case for me. My partner is a vegan ally, and if you want to learn more about this, check out this book by Melanie Joy. It's called Beyond Beliefs, and it was massively helpful to me, a good few years back when it first came out, and I was still struggling at that time massively with the fact that he wasn't vegan and I was. So recognizing that someone could be a vegan ally is really, really powerful. And for me, certainly, like, he will eat all vegan meals with me and he will go out of his way to make sure that I've got something to have at restaurants, that I've got something to have if I'm ever like around friends or family or we're going somewhere, he'll make sure that I'm covered. He will advocate for veganism and defend veganism in his workplace, and when he's talking to other people, if someone makes some quip about veganism, he'll be the first to jump in and defend me. This is a vegan ally. Yes, he might eat a sausage roll now and then, and he might eat a Domino's pizza with pepperoni on it once every 3 months, but that doesn't mean that the other 99.9% of the time doesn't count. And we can very, very quickly, as vegans, I think generally, and I know I certainly do this, you kind of hone in on where people can be better all the time, and like, well, why aren't you 100% vegan, or why aren't you 100% like plant-based, whatever. You can just drive yourself crazy in this circle. The world that we live in isn't perfect. Do I wish that the world we live in was free from all animal suffering? Of course I do, but that is not the case, and we have to recognize that perhaps, well, I imagine I certainly was, but everyone potentially watching this ate meat at one point. It doesn't mean that you hated animals. It doesn't mean that you were a bad person. It's just a result of the system that we live in. It's geared towards eating meat. It is not geared towards veganism. It is a bit more now, but there's still a long way to go. So recognizing that that person isn't bad and that they can actually be a really strong vegan ally without being 100% vegan and getting the vegan badge of honor is really, really powerful. And certainly something that's really helped me is to start to think of it that way. Someone can do a lot of good and a lot of great things and be a really unexpected advocate for animals, who is perhaps a more powerful voice than the more kind of extreme vegan voices, and they can do a lot. So recognizing that allyship, those vegan meals that they do eat, those vegan meals that they do help you to create, you know, those videos that they do watch, all that kind of stuff, recognizing that is a really great way to just bring yourself down and just remember that the person that you are with is good, you know, and that someone doesn't have to be 100% vegan to be worthy of love and compassion. I keep moving around the house because there's people doing like building work outside and it's really noisy. So if you can hear drilling throughout this video, then I do apologize. But yeah, like I hope this was helpful. This certainly isn't something that I fixed overnight. I have had to do a lot of like internal work. We've had to do a lot of relationship work. But generally the point that I'm trying to make is that like you are not alone. Just because the person you are with isn't vegan doesn't mean that your relationship won't work. It doesn't mean that they'll never go vegan, but it also doesn't mean that they're a bad, terrible person and you should like go out with someone else. I mean, they might be for other reasons, but I don't think that eating meat and dairy is like a deal breaker. It certainly wasn't for me. So don't worry, you're not alone. There's loads of people going through this, and yeah, I'm sure I'll make many more videos about this topic, but I hope that was helpful. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please like this video, and hit subscribe if you can. I would really appreciate it. See you soon.